Deliveries are around the back, sir.
I think there's been a misunderstanding.
I'm going to ask you to leave. May I speak with someone upstairs? That won't be possible today.
Deliveries are around the back and don't touch anything on your way out. The receptionist said it loud, loud enough that the whole lobby of Brooks Meridian turned to look, and she said it standing up, one arm already pointing at the door, staring down a black man in a faded work jacket who had walked in off the street 90 seconds before. Somebody by the coffee station laughed. Two security guards were already moving toward him, one from each side, the way you close on a threat. Nobody had asked his name. Nobody had asked why he was there. Nobody had offered him a chair. The man didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He looked up, past the pointing arm, past the guards, past the woman deciding his whole life from 6 feet away, to the single word mounted in brushed steel above the desk. Meridian, the word his dead wife had chosen. For the company he had built with his own 2 hands, and 7 floors up, pressed against the mezzanine glass, his 17-year-old daughter watched the whole thing and did the one thing that was tearing her apart. Nothing. Because that morning, in the truck, he had made her promise. 4 hours earlier, Isaiah Brooks had zipped that same jacket up in the cab of a 14-year-old pickup and told his daughter, both hands on the wheel, not looking at her, "If you see me today, you don't know me." Maya had laughed. She'd thought it was a game. She wasn't laughing now. She was 7 floors up with her hands flat against the glass, watching 2 guards box in the man who taught her to ride a bike, who still cut the crusts off her toast when he thought she was sad and she couldn't scream, couldn't run down the stairs, couldn't say the one word climbing her throat because she had promised and she didn't even know why. Then, 40 feet below, across the marble, without turning his head, without once looking up at her, her father touched 2 fingers to his own collarbone. Twice. Light. The gesture her mother used to make. The one that meant, "I've got you. Steady now." And Maya stopped breathing. Because now she understood. Whatever was about to happen down there, he'd planned it. He'd walked into his own building dressed like this on purpose. She just didn't know why yet. Neither did anyone in that lobby. They were about to find out, all of them, at the same time on every screen in the building. Now, for you to understand why a billionaire let a room full of his own employees laugh at him, you have to go back 6 years to a hospital corridor at 2 in the morning and a promise made to a woman a machine was breathing for and could not save. Meridian had been Grace Brooks's word. She'd said it to him once, at the very beginning, back when the whole company was a folding table and a rented unit and a coffee maker that only worked if you hit it in the right spot. The meridian, she'd told him, tracing the line on a diagram. The highest point the sun reaches before it starts coming back down. Build toward that, Isaiah. And don't you dare put your own name on the building. Put something that means something. So he had. He'd built toward the highest point, and when the company grew into 40 stories of glass and steel over the downtown skyline, he'd left his own name off the front and hung her word there instead. Then she got sick. And then, in 11 months that moved like 11 days, she was gone. And Isaiah Brooks was standing in a corridor, holding the hand of an 11-year-old girl who had just lost her mother, doing the only math that mattered. A daughter needs a father in the school pickup line more than a company needs a founder in the hallway. So he stepped back. He handed the day-to-day to an executive team he trusted, kept his chairman's seat and his controlling stake, and became a man who approved budgets from a kitchen table, reviewed renderings on a laptop, and had not physically walked into his own headquarters in almost 6 years. He'd poured those years into Maya, into science fairs, and scraped knees in the slow, patient work of raising a grieving girl into a steady one. For 6 years, that had been enough. Then the reports started reaching him. They came in slowly at first, the kind of thing you can explain away. A vendor left waiting in the lobby an hour past an appointment nobody honored. A janitor who'd worked the building for a decade, mentioning to someone who mentioned to someone that the managers had stopped saying good morning, had stopped, somewhere along the way, seeing him at all. Then came the one Isaiah read twice. An applicant, 22 years old. First interview, first suit, a cheap one, the kind you buy when you have exactly one shot and no money to make a second impression. He'd been turned away at the front desk before he ever reached the interview floor. Someone had looked at the suit and decided the person inside it wasn't worth the elevator ride. Isaiah set the report down on his kitchen table and stared at the wall for a long time. Because he had built this entire company on one sentence. He used to say it to every new hire, back when every new hire still fit in a single room. We do not decide what a person is worth by looking at them. He said it because he knew it in his body. He had been that young man in the cheap suit once. He had been turned away from front desks. He had watched people's faces do the fast, ugly arithmetic that ends in "not worth my time." And he had spent his entire life proving that arithmetic wrong. And now it was happening inside the walls he'd built to keep it out. He didn't want to believe it. That was the honest truth. He did not want the reports to be true, because if they were, then something he loved had rotted quietly while he wasn't looking. So he decided to do the only thing that would give him an answer he could trust. He would go see for himself. Not as the founder gets a polished lobby and a brief staff and everyone on their best behavior. He would go as the one kind of man, the report said, this building had learned to despise. He would go as a stranger in old clothes. There was only one problem, and her name was Maya. She was 17 now, starting college in the fall, and for a year she'd been asking to see how the company actually ran the real thing, not the version you get on a tour. Isaiah had already promised her this Tuesday. He wasn't going to break a promise to his daughter to keep a secret from his staff. So he did something that, in a few hours, was going to detonate in the middle of that lobby. He brought her anyway. He called the one person in the building he trusted completely, Renata Vance, the CEO he'd handpicked 4 years earlier, the only executive who'd known grace, the only one who knew Maya's face. "She'll shadow you today," he told Renata on the phone. "Before college, she wants to see how it runs." And then, carefully, "Renata, whatever happens down in that building today, you don't know her either. Not out loud. Trust me, please." Renata had thought that was a strange thing to ask. She'd let it go. She was about to understand exactly what he'd meant. They'd driven in together at dawn, father and daughter, in the 14-year-old pickup he'd owned since before the money. They split a gas station breakfast on the highway and argued about the radio. It was, Maya would think later, the last ordinary hour of that entire day. He dropped her at a side entrance with a guest badge that said only her first name, and he told her the rule in the truck with both hands on the wheel. "If you see me today, you don't know me." She laughed. He didn't. "Maya," he finally looked at her, "I mean it. Whatever you see, whatever it looks like, you keep your eyes forward and you don't know my face. Can you give me that?" "Yeah, Dad." She still thought it was a game. "I can give you that." He touched 2 fingers to his collarbone, steady now, and she rolled her eyes and did it back and got out of the truck. 4 hours later, she was standing at the mezzanine glass watching 2 security guards close in on him, and the game was over, and she finally understood what he'd been asking her to survive. Down in the lobby, the receptionist had not sat back down. Her name tag read Dalia, and she was maybe 28, dark hair pulled tight, and she was performing now, not just handling a problem, but performing the handling of it for the crowd she could feel gathering behind her. "I'm going to need you to be honest with me," she said. "Who sent you here?" It was a strange question, and it gave away more than she knew. She hadn't asked, "Who are you here to see?" She'd asked who sent him, as if a man in a jacket like that could only be in her lobby by someone else's mistake. An errand, a wrong turn, a person who belonged to a category, not to himself. "Nobody sent me," Isaiah said quietly. "I came on my own. I'm here to see the executive floor." Delia laughed. It wasn't cruel exactly. It was worse. It was easy the laugh of a person who has never once been on the receiving end of a room's decision and doesn't know the sound carries. "The executive floor," she repeated to the room, delighted. Someone at the coffee station lifted a phone and started filming. That was when the second man arrived. He came through a door behind reception heavyset, mid-50s, gray at the temples, a senior lanyard swinging as he crossed the floor, with the particular stride of a man walking through a building he considers his own personal kingdom. He didn't look at the guards. He didn't look at the gathering crowd. He looked only at Isaiah, and the look had already sorted him, filed him, and closed the file before a single word was spoken. His tag read, Marcus Deng, Operations. You need to step outside, he said. May I ask who I'm speaking with? I'm the man telling you you're leaving. Marcus didn't blink. You're creating a disturbance. Isaiah had not raised his voice once. He noted the word disturbance, noted it quietly, the way he noted everything, without letting his face move. I understand your concern, he said, but I think there's been a misunderstanding I can clear up quickly. One phone call, to the right person upstairs. That's all I'm asking. Without ID, without an appointment, without a request filed 24 hours in advance, Marcus recited the policy like scripture, and there was pleasure under it. The pleasure of a man who has never in his life been on the wrong side of a rule. There is no one upstairs coming down. Not for you. He nodded at the nearer guard. The tag read T. Jaden, a broad man in his 30s who took a half step closer. Just pressure. But Isaiah caught something the rest of the room missed. Jaden's jaw was set wrong, tight, the expression of a man doing a job he has not chosen and does not like, and he would not meet Isaiah's eyes. Remember that, Isaiah thought. He's the only one in here who's ashamed. I'd like to speak with your chief executive, Isaiah said. Calm, no demand in it, and Marcus Deng smiled and said the thing that Isaiah would carry out of that building. A man like you, he said, wouldn't get 30 seconds of her time. He said it with total, unexamined certainty. The certainty of a man who has never once had to wonder which side of a lobby he belongs on. A man like you. Isaiah looked up, one more time, at the word on the wall. Her word, meridian. The highest point, right before it all comes back down. Then, across the lobby, the executive elevator opened. Two people stepped out of it, and both of them stopped at exactly the same instant, for exactly the same reason. Only one of them was allowed to show it. Renata Vance came out first, in a charcoal blazer, already moving toward the disturbance she'd been called down to handle, and her stride broke. Just for a step. Her professional composure, the thing she wore as smoothly as the blazer, cracked down the middle as her eyes landed on the man surrounded by her own security, in a jacket she had never seen, being called a man like you by her own operations director. Recognition hit her body a full second before her mind caught up. But Maya had come down too. She talked her way into the elevator behind the CEO because she could not stand at that glass 1 second longer, and Maya did not get the grace of a full second. She saw her father in the center of the ring. She saw the jacket she had zipped that morning. She heard the tail of the sentence, a man like you, and everything in her 17-year-old body pulled toward him at once. Her mouth opened, her foot lifted. Dad! And across 40 feet of marble, without turning his head, without once looking at her, Isaiah touched 2 fingers to his collarbone. Twice. Light. I've got you. Don't. Steady now. Maya's foot came back down. She understood the whole instruction inside that one small motion, because it was the oldest language she knew, older than words, taught to her by a mother who was gone, and it did not belong to this room, and never would. Don't say my name. Don't come to me. Let this happen. I need you to be braver than you have ever been. Tears ran straight down her face without a sound, and she pressed her own 2 fingers to her own collarbone. And she stood there, and she let them keep hurting her father, because he had asked her to, and it was the hardest, loneliest thing she had ever done, and not one person in that crowded lobby knew they were watching a daughter break in total silence. Marcus Deng saw the CEO arrive and squared his shoulders, ready to be seen handling it well. Miss Vance, tidy, confident. A man filing a clean report with a superior. It's under control. This individual's refused repeated requests to leave. I'm arranging a formal removal, and honestly, I'd recommend we ban him from the property permanently. Renata looked at Marcus. She did not correct him. She did not confirm him either. In the absence of that confirmation, the flat, waiting silence, where a CEO's agreement should have told Marcus Deng that the ground had shifted under his feet. It told him nothing. He turned to Jaden. Access control. Flag him. No re-entry. Effective now. Jaden lifted his radio. He did it slowly. And across the lobby, unhurried, the man in the $42 jacket reached into his inner pocket and took out a phone. He didn't make a show of it. He pulled up a number he knew by heart, pressed it, and lifted it to his ear. It connected before the first ring finished, which meant whoever was on the other end had been standing by, waiting this whole time. Isaiah said 3 words into the phone. Then he ended the call and put it back in his pocket. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. Delia went back to her keyboard satisfied. Marcus started saying something to Jaden about the paperwork. The crowd began, at the edges, to lose interest. And 40 feet away now, a 17-year-old girl watched her father lower that phone, and she alone in the entire lobby understood that whatever was about to happen to this room, he had not done it to save himself. He'd done it because he had finally seen what was real, and he decided the whole building needed to see it too. Then every screen in the lobby went black at once. For a moment, nothing happened. The screens stayed black. The lobby kept making its ordinary morning noise, the hum of the air system, the distant chime of an elevator, someone's heels crossing the marble. Marcus Deng was still talking to Jaden about the trespass paperwork. Delia had gone back to her keyboard with the settled expression of a woman who had handled a problem and handled it well. Then the screens came back. Not with product highlights, not with the company metrics that usually ran there. Every panel in the lobby, the long wall behind reception, the 2 flanking the elevator bank, the display above the security desk, all of them turned white at the same instant, and a single line of black text appeared, large enough to read from any corner of the room. Please welcome the founder and chairman of Meridian, Mr. Isaiah Brooks. And beneath the words, a photograph. It was an old one. Isaiah had chosen it himself, on the phone, in the truck, an hour before any of this. Not a polished corporate headshot, a photo from the very beginning, from the folding table days, a younger man in a cheap jacket standing in front of a rented unit with a woman laughing beside him, and the woman was Grace, and the jacket in the photograph was almost the same jacket he was wearing right now. He had chosen that picture on purpose. He wanted them to see that the man in the old clothes and the man who signed their paychecks had always been the same man, that there had never been 2 of him, that the person they had decided was worth nothing, and the person who owned the floor beneath their feet were one and the same, and the only thing that had changed was the jacket. The room understood in stages. The people nearest the screens read it first, and a sound moved through them, a sharp intake of breath, a hand finding another person's arm. It rippled outward. Someone near the coffee station said a word out loud that they did not finish. The young woman with the phone stopped filming, then started again, then did not know what she was doing with her hands at all. Delia looked up from her keyboard. She read the screen once. She read it again. And the expression she had been wearing all morning, that tight, certain, performing expression, simply came apart, and there was nothing underneath it that was ready for this. Her eyes went from the screen to the man in the jacket, to the man she had told to use the back entrance, to the man she had said was not the kind of help they hired, and the color left her face the way water leaves a sink. Marcus Deng turned toward the screens, the way a man turns toward a sound he cannot place. He read the words. He read the name. And Isaiah watched something happen to him that was almost hard to look at. Watched a lifetime of certainty, 30 years of knowing exactly which side of every lobby he stood on, fall away from his face and leave behind an old man who did not understand where he was. Jaden lowered his radio. He did not rush to distance himself. He did not suddenly stand up straighter to signal he had been on the right side all along. He simply set the radio down at his belt and went still, and for 1 second his eyes met Isaiah's, and there was something in them that was almost, not quite, but almost, a nod. And up on the mezzanine, 7 floors of open air away, Maya Brooks put both hands over her mouth and finally, silently, let herself cry all the way. Because it was over. Because they knew now. Because her father was going to be all right. She did not yet know the day was only half done. She did not know what he was about to do with that microphone, or the question he was about to ask, or that before the morning ended, this whole building would learn her name too. But that comes later. Right now, Isaiah Brooks looked at the room full of people who had just discovered exactly who they had thrown out, and he did the last thing any of them expected. He said nothing about it at all. There was a raised platform at the far end of the lobby near the elevator bank, a low stage built into the redesign for company announcements. Isaiah had approved the drawing for it 2 years earlier from his kitchen table and had never once stood on it. He walked toward it now, and the crowd parted without being asked. Not because anyone told them to move, because the room had reorganized itself around a new understanding of who was standing in it, and that understanding moved people the way gravity moves water, quietly, without argument, according to what is real. He stepped up onto the platform and turned to face them. He still had not said his name. He had let a screen do that. And now, standing above the lobby in his $42 jacket with the dirt still on his boots, he looked out at the faces, the ones frozen at the reception desk, the ones pressed against the walls, the manager half hidden behind a column, and he did not look angry. That was the thing that unsettled them most. They had wronged a powerful man, and they were braced for a powerful man's fury, and instead they got something quieter and far more frightening. They got a man who looked disappointed. "I want to tell you what I came here to do this morning," Isaiah said. He did not raise his voice. The acoustics were good, another thing he had approved without seeing, and the room had gone quiet enough that he did not need to. "And I want you to understand that I did not come here to catch anyone. I need you to hear that first, because in about a minute some of you are going to think this was a trap. It was not a trap. A trap is something you set for a person you have already decided is guilty. I came in this morning hoping you would prove the reports wrong." He let that sit. "For 6 years I have not walked through those front doors. Some of you have never met me. A few of you did not know I existed until 90 seconds ago. That is my doing, and I do not regret the reason for it. But I have learned this morning that it had a cost. Because when a founder disappears from a building, the building slowly forgets what it was built for. And it does not forget in a boardroom. It forgets right here, at the front desk, in the first 30 seconds a stranger walks through the door. Somewhere in the crowd, someone was quietly weeping. It was not Delia. Delia had not moved. "I built this company on one sentence," Isaiah said. "Some of the people who have been here long enough have heard me say it. We do not decide what a person is worth by looking at them. I did not put that on a wall in a break room. I put it in the way we were supposed to treat every single person who walked through that door, because I know what it is to be looked at and measured and found worthless in under a second by someone who never once asked my name." He paused. "This morning, that happened to me in my own lobby. And here is the part I need you to sit with. It did not hurt me. I have money, and I have standing, and I have 30 years of proof that the arithmetic was wrong. I walked in here in a $42 jacket, and I am still exactly who I am. The jacket cost me nothing." His voice did not rise. It got quieter. That was the tell, for anyone who knew him, that they were arriving at the thing he had actually come to say. "But I want every one of you to imagine that the man who walked in this morning was just a man in an old jacket." The room held still. Imagine he was not the founder. Imagine no screen was ever going to change. Imagine he was exactly who you decided he was. A vendor with a proposal worth reading. An applicant in the only suit he owns. A father coming to ask about a job so he could feed a child at home. Isaiah looked, for 1/2 of 1 second, up toward the mezzanine glass, and then back down at the room so fast that no one caught where his eyes had gone. Imagine he had no phone to pull out, no name that was going to appear on that wall. Imagine there was never going to be a moment where you found out you were wrong. He let the silence stretch until it hurt. Because that man exists. He walks into buildings like this one every day. And the only difference between him and me is that this morning, I got to change the screen. Nobody answered. The question was not built to be answered. It was built to be carried, and the room carried it, and you could see it land on face after face, the slow horror of people realizing that the version of themselves they met this morning was the real one, and that it had only ever been luck, the accident of a screen that had turned them into people who had wronged a billionaire instead of people who had quietly crushed someone who could not fight back. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice that no one expected spoke up. "That's not fair." Every head turned. It was Marcus Deng. He came forward out of the crowd, and his face had changed from the gray shock of the reveal into something else, something hot and cornered, and Isaiah understood that he was watching a proud man decide to fight rather than fall. "You want to talk about what's fair?" Marcus said, and his voice shook even as he tried to hold it level. "You disappear for 6 years. 6 years. You leave us to run your building with no warning you'd ever walk back through that door, and then you put on a costume and you come in here to test us like children. And when we follow the exact procedures your own company wrote down, you humiliate us in front of everyone we work with." He was breathing hard. "I have given this company 19 years, Mr. Brooks. 19. And you're going to stand up there and let a screen decide who I am in 10 seconds. The same thing you're accusing me of." The lobby was dead silent. And here is what almost no one expected. Isaiah Brooks nodded slowly, and he said, "You're right." The room stirred. "You are right that 19 years is not 10 seconds, Isaiah said. "You are right that I disappeared, and that a building forgets what its founder does not show up to defend, and that some of that is mine to carry. I meant it when I said I did not come here to catch anyone. If you had failed a policy, Marcus, we would be having a very different conversation, a private one, in an office upstairs." Then his voice cooled, just slightly, and the room felt the temperature drop. "But you did not fail a policy this morning. You followed the policy perfectly. There is no rule in this building that says you must call a man a delivery. There is no procedure that required you to tell me the CEO would not waste 30 seconds on a man like me. You added that. That came from you. That was not the policy speaking. That was you telling me exactly what you believe a person in an old jacket is worth, and you believed it so completely that you said it out loud to a stranger in front of 40 people. Marcus opened his mouth. "I am not going to decide who you are in 10 seconds, Isaiah said, gentler now. "That is exactly the thing I am asking this whole building to stop doing. So I am not going to fire you from this platform. What is going to happen is that everything that occurred in this lobby this morning, every second of it, from the moment I walked in to the moment those screens changed, is on 16 cameras with no blind spots, because I approved that system myself and I was particular about the coverage. HR and legal are going to review all of it, not me, them. And it will be reviewed the same way it would be reviewed for the lowest paid person in this building, with no special mercy and no special cruelty. And whatever it says about your 19 years, that is what will decide this. Not me. Not a screen. The truth of what you actually did." He looked around the whole room. "That goes for everyone who spoke this morning, and everyone who laughed, and everyone who watched and said nothing. Not a purge, a review, an honest one. That is the only kind of fairness I know how to give you, and it is more than most of you gave the man in the jacket." Marcus Deng stood there with his fists open and empty at his sides, and slowly the fight went out of him, because there was nothing to push against. Isaiah had not attacked him. Isaiah had handed him the one thing a cornered man cannot fight, which is the plain offer to be judged by the truth. He turned and walked back into the crowd, and the crowd let him through. And no one could tell yet whether they were watching a man walk toward the end of his career or toward the narrowest chance of keeping it. But the morning was not over. Because Renata Vance stepped up onto the platform beside Isaiah, and she had a strange expression on her face, and she leaned in and said something to him too quietly for the room to hear, and whatever she said made Isaiah Brooks go very still. What Renata said was this: Isaiah, the applicant, the kid in the cheap suit, the one from the report that brought you in, he's here, right now. He's in the fourth floor waiting room. He came back to try again today. Isaiah did not move for a moment, because this was the thing the reports had done to him, the thing he had not told even Renata. That one report the 22-year-old turned away before he reached the interview had not just angered him, it had reached back 30 years and grabbed him by the collar. Because Isaiah Brooks had been that young man in the only suit he owned, and the day it happened to him, no screen ever changed, no name ever appeared on a wall, and he had walked out of that building and sat in his car and wondered if the people were right, if he really was worth nothing. And it had taken Grace, years later, to teach him they were wrong. He had never gotten to go back into that building and make it right. Now, 30 years later, the same building was his, and the young man was on the fourth floor. Bring him down, Isaiah said. His voice was not quite steady. It was the first time all morning it had not been steady. No, don't bring him down like a summons. Someone go up and ask him, kindly, if he would come to the lobby. Ask him. Do not order him. They waited. The whole lobby waited, and no one fully understood what they were waiting for, and the not understanding held them there as surely as any command. The elevator opened, and a young man stepped out in a gray suit that did not fit him right, a suit you could tell had been pressed carefully that morning by someone who only owned the one. And he stopped at the sight of the crowd, and his face did the thing Isaiah remembered from the inside, the flinch of a person who walks into a room and immediately assumes the room is not for him. Isaiah came down off the platform and crossed the floor to him, and he did not tower over him, and he did not perform. He put out his hand. What's your name, son? Elias, the young man said. Elias Turner. Sir, I think I'm in the wrong place, they told me the interview. You're in the right place, Isaiah said. You came back. After what they did to you the first time, you got up this morning and you put on that suit again and you came back. Do you know how much that is worth? Do you know how few people in this building could do what you just did? Elias did not know what was happening. He looked past Isaiah at the crowd, at the CEO on the platform, at the white screen still glowing with an old man's name, and he did not understand any of it. I was you, Isaiah said quietly, just to him now. So quietly the room had to strain and mostly failed to hear it. 30 years ago. Same suit, same front desk, same feeling you've got in your chest right now. Nobody ever came back out and told me I was in the right place. So, I'm telling you. And then I'm going to walk you upstairs myself. And you are going to have the interview you came for, and you are going to get it on your own merit, because I've seen your application and you belong in that room. The only thing I'm giving you is the door. You already earned the rest. And Elias Turner, 22 years old, in the only suit he owned, in front of a lobby full of strangers, put his hand over his eyes and wept, and Isaiah Brooks stood beside him and let him, and did not rush it, and did not touch him, and just stayed, the way you stay next to something you will not let fall. Up on the mezzanine, Maya watched her father do this, and understood something about him she had spent 17 years too close to see, that the reports had never been about the company at all, that her father had come here to rescue a stranger, because 30 years ago, no one had come to rescue him. And that was the moment Maya decided she was done staying silent. She came down the stairs. Not the elevator. The open stairs, the ones that ran down along the mezzanine into the lobby in full view of everyone, and heads began to turn, as a 17-year-old girl in a guest badge descended into a room that had no idea who she was. Isaiah saw her coming and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. You don't have to. And Maya, for the first time in her life, did not obey the collarbone. She walked straight across the marble to her father, in front of all of them, and she took his hand, and she turned to face the lobby that had spent the morning deciding he was worth nothing, and she said, in a voice that shook and did not stop for the shaking, "His name is Isaiah Brooks. He's the founder of this company, and he's my dad." The room made a sound it had not made all morning. "I've been up there the whole time." Her voice cracked and she kept going anyway. "I watched you laugh at him. I watched you point at the door. I've been standing up there since 8 o'clock this morning, and he made me promise not to say anything. And I want you to know that was the hardest thing I have ever done in my whole life. Watching people laugh at my father and not being allowed to tell them who he is." She was crying now, openly, and she did not wipe it away. "But I'm glad he made me do it, because now I know what he's really like. Not when people are watching him be a billionaire, when they think he's nobody." She looked up at him. "You always tell me character is who you are when you've got nothing to offer people. I never understood it till today." And Isaiah Brooks, who had held his composure through a slur and a mob and a cornered man's fury, who had not let his face move once all morning, finally let it move. He touched 2 fingers to his collarbone. And his daughter, crying, smiling, 17 and unbreakable, touched 2 fingers to hers. And in a lobby full of people who now understood exactly what they had done, not one of them could speak, because they had come to work that morning certain they knew what they were looking at, and they had been wrong about all of it. Wrong about the jacket, wrong about the man, wrong about the girl, wrong about what a person is worth and how you could possibly tell from the outside. In the weeks that followed, the review happened exactly the way Isaiah promised it would. Honest, no special mercy, no special cruelty. Delia, whose words on the camera footage left no room for a corrective plan, was let go. Marcus Dang was not fired. His 19 years were real, and the review found a man who had followed a broken culture rather than built one. And he was placed on a conduct plan and made, at his own eventual request, part of the thing Isaiah built next. Jaden received a commendation and a raise for the shame he had carried in his jaw all morning, the only person in the lobby who had refused to enjoy it. Elias Turner got the job. On merit, Isaiah checked, and Isaiah did not put his name on the building. He put something else there instead. A single line, mounted in the lobby beneath the word Grace had chosen, where every person who walked through those front doors would read it before anyone at that desk could decide what they were worth. "We do not decide what a person is worth by looking at them." Not a slogan for a break room. A standard with teeth in it, written into the first 30 seconds of every visit. Backed by a company-wide initiative, he wrote the language for himself. Every office, every front desk, every vendor, applicant, and stranger in an old jacket met with the same baseline of dignity, and it was reviewed, and it was enforced, and it was measured against what actually happened to real people at real desks, not against a poster on a wall. He came back to the headquarters twice more that month, unannounced, both times in the same worn jacket. The first time, the new person at the front desk stood up, came around the desk, and asked if she could get him a chair and a glass of water while he waited. She had no idea who he was. That was the whole point. She did it because that was simply how the front of the building worked now. Isaiah sat in the chair. He drank the water, and he thought that this, not the screens, not the name on the wall, not the moment the room found out it was wrong, was the only part of the morning that had ever mattered. That evening, in the truck, driving home, Maya finally asked him the question she had been holding all day. "Dad, why did you let them do it? You could have stopped it in 1 second. You could have said your name the minute you walked in. Why did you stand there and let them hurt you like that?" Isaiah drove for a while before he answered. The city slid by in the windows, the highest windows catching the last of the sun where it crossed the meridian and started coming down. "Because character isn't revealed when people know who you are," he said. "Anybody can be kind to a billionaire. The whole world is kind to a billionaire. He glanced at her. It's revealed when they think you've got nothing to offer them. That's the only time you ever find out what a person actually is. And it's the only time they ever find out what you are. Maya looked out the window. You wanted to know what the company really was, she said. I did. And you found out. I did. He was quiet a moment. But that's not the only thing I found out today. She looked at him. I found out what you do. He kept his eyes on the road, but his voice had gone rough. I asked you to stand up there and watch people tear into your father and stay silent. And I told myself it was to protect the plan. But the truth is, I didn't know if you could do it. And I didn't know what it would cost you. And I have been sick about it all day. He breathed out. You came down those stairs and you took my hand in front of all of them. 17 years old. He shook his head. Your mother would not have been able to stand it. She'd have come down those stairs in the first 30 seconds and burned the whole lobby to the ground. Maya laughed, wet and sudden. I almost did. I know you did, he smiled. I saw your foot. They drove. And after a while, without either of them deciding to, at the exact same moment, they each reached up and touched 2 fingers to their own collarbone. The gesture a woman who was gone had left them both, the one that meant I've got you, steady now. And neither of them said anything, because they did not need to, because some things live in the body and get handed down and do not require a single word. The sun crossed the highest point of the sky, and then, the way it always does, it started, slowly, gently, to come back down.